Picture this. You walk into a classroom in Tokyo. The teacher writes on the blackboard, English. The students nod politely, pull out their notebooks, and then nothing. Silence. Because in Japan, English doesn't mean English, it means America. And if you thought that was a joke, no, that's the national policy. Now here's where the comedy begins. After 12 years of studying English, the average Japanese adult can barely introduce themselves without sweating like they just ran a marathon. My name is Tanaka. Bravo. 12 years of taxpayer funding, and we've got a sentence that a 5-year-old in Manila could beat in their sleep. But don't worry, there's always an excuse. The Japanese will tell you, oh, English is too difficult. Our brains are different. We are shy. We don't have chances to speak. Really? Korea is next door. Singapore is down south. India is across the ocean. And somehow all of them managed. But Japan, eternal beginner mode. And let's be honest, it's not about difficulty, it's about effort. Japan is allergic to mastery. Mastering English would mean exposing yourself, practicing every day, risking embarrassment. And Japan is the world champion in avoiding embarrassment. Instead, they've created a national pastime called excuse making. So buckle up. Because in this video, we're going to break down why Japan can't speak English, why excuses are their national language, and why, spoiler alert, they're not fooling anyone anymore. Let's start with the math. Japanese kids study English from junior high all the way through college. That's more than 12 years of classroom time. And what's the result? A vocabulary of maybe 50 words, mispronounced, delivered with the confidence of a snail at a job interview. But here's the kicker. Japanese people don't even realize how bad it is, because in their minds, English equals America. You see, the world has 195 countries, but for the Japanese brain, just two. Japan and the United States. The rest, invisible. Singapore doesn't exist. Nigeria, never heard of it. Britain, oh, that's Harry Potter land. They've reduced an entire language into a two-country fantasy map. Narrow-minded isn't the right word. This is tunnel vision wearing a kimono. And when you point this out, what happens? Excuses. Oh, but our education system is different. Translation, we just don't care. Oh, but English isn't needed in daily life. Translation, we're too lazy to master it. Oh, but pronunciation is hard. Really? Then how come every Japanese YouTuber can pronounce Starbucks Frappuccino double caramel macchiato flawlessly? This is the tragedy of Japan. They worship the idea of learning, but never the act of mastering. They love buying textbooks, attending cram schools, highlighting words in neon pink. But actually open their mouth and speak? Forget it. That would mean risking failure, and failure is scarier than North Korea with a rocket. So after 12 years, they're still stuck at square one. Not because they're incapable, but because they refuse to step outside the comfort zone. Japan is a nation that confuses memorization with communication and excuses with education. And that's why, after all this time, they remain the world's oldest beginners. If English is Japan's first failure, then excuses are their second official language. And let me tell you, they are fluent, PhD level, Olympic gold medalists in excuse making. Ask a Japanese adult, why can't you speak English? And you'll hear a never-ending karaoke list of excuses. Because we are shy. Oh really? Shy? Then why do you get drunk at karaoke bars and scream Bon Jovi's It's My Life at 2 a.m. with perfect pronunciation? Suddenly, the shyness evaporates when there's a microphone and alcohol involved. Next excuse, our brains are different. Ah yes, the famous Japanese brain. The one supposedly incapable of learning foreign languages, but somehow capable of memorizing 2,000 kanji characters, multiple honorific systems, and every Pokemon name ever created. If you can remember the evolutionary difference between Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard, trust me, you can handle How Are You Today? Then comes the classic. We don't need English in Japan. Translation, we're too stubborn to admit the world doesn't revolve around Tokyo. Let's be clear. English is not about chatting with Americans. It's about connecting with the other 6 billion people on Earth. But the Japanese, they hear English and instantly think America. Narrow vision doesn't even describe it. It's cultural myopia. Japan is the guy wearing blinders at a horse race, except the horse is drunk and running backwards. And finally, my favourite. We studied English for 12 years, but it didn't work. That's like saying, I went to the gym for 12 years, but I never lost weight, because I never actually lifted anything. You can't just sit in a classroom, memorize lists, and expect to wake up speaking like BBC World News. But in Japan, excuses are always more comfortable than effort. So here we are, a nation of 12-year veterans who can't order a hamburger in English without fainting. Not because they can't, but because they've convinced themselves they don't have to. And when reality crashes in, don't worry, they'll have another excuse ready by tomorrow. So why can't the Japanese speak English? Simple. Their vocabulary is smaller than the average TikTok caption, less than 3,000 words after 12 years of study. To put that in perspective, an English-speaking toddler hits that milestone before kindergarten. Congratulations, Japan. You've linguistically tied with a 4-year-old. And this is not an exaggeration. The Japanese education system focuses on drilling grammar patterns and memorizing obscure test questions. But when it comes to actual words, the building blocks of communication, they collapse like a Jenga tower in an earthquake. You can't build a skyscraper with 3 Lego bricks. Yet somehow Japan thinks they can have a global conversation with, "This is a pen." Let's be brutally honest. With 3,000 words, you can't argue, negotiate, persuade, or even flirt. You can maybe order food, maybe ask directions, maybe tell someone your name if you rehearse it first. But that's it. And the tragic comedy is that Japan pretends this is study. No, this isn't study. This is linguistic cosplay. It's like dressing up in a doctor's white coat and claiming you can perform surgery because you watched Grey's Anatomy. Meanwhile, in countries like Singapore, India, or the Philippines, people grow up juggling 20,000, 30,000 English words without making excuses. In Japan, the moment you point this out, here comes the chorus of excuses again. But Japanese is so hard, we already mastered one language. Yeah, and what did that get you? An island where everyone's trapped in their own bubble, terrified of opening their mouth in English because their vocabulary runs out after "how are you?" And this is the narrow mind at its peak. Instead of actually expanding their word bank, Japan spends more time inventing excuses. They don't even notice that their compulsory vocabulary is what Western middle schoolers would consider baby talk. The result? A country where English is studied for 12 years but never spoken. A country where international communication is strangled not by lack of intelligence but by lack of words. So next time someone asks, why can't the Japanese speak English? The answer is easy. Because 3,000 words isn't English. It's diet English, light English, a parody of English, and Japan seems perfectly happy to stay stuck there forever. Here's the part that deserves a standing ovation. Japanese people not only butcher English, they can't even use their own language properly when trying to show off online. Go to any YouTube video where a foreigner criticizes Japan, and you'll find an army of Japanese commenters rushing to defend their nation in broken English and hilariously, sometimes even broken Japanese. Yes, the samurai descendants of kanji can't even conjugate their own verbs correctly when they're in battle mode. Bravo. Imagine this. A Japanese commenter writes, "You not understanding Japan culture, we unique, no need English." That's not English, that's caveman cosplay. But the punchline? The Japanese audience below will actually like the comment, as if they just witnessed Shakespeare reincarnated. In reality, it reads like something a second grader in rural India would laugh at. And don't forget, sometimes even the Japanese grammar in those comments is wrong. Yes, they managed to fail at Japanese while trying to insult foreigners in English. That's like an Italian chef burning pasta while bragging about culinary superiority. Narrow mind? No. This is a black hole of self-awareness. But the tragedy wrapped in comedy is this. Instead of realizing, oh, maybe our education failed us, the Japanese double down on excuses. Our English is not perfect because we are shy. Our brain different. Our country safe, no need English. Really? Safety doesn't excuse stupidity. You don't get a Nobel Prize for staying quiet and monolingual. And yet the self-pity continues. We try so hard. No. Highlighting 20 pages in a grammar book while never using a single word outside the classroom is not trying hard. That's intellectual cosplay. That's pretending to be international while hiding in the most narrow provincial bubble on earth. So the next time you see a Japanese comment online that says, "We Japanese are unique people, English not need," don't argue. Just reply in flawless English. "You're right. You don't need English, because excuses are already your national language." And watch them melt faster than Fukushima ice cream in August. Here's the cruel reality. In most countries, education is just the beginning. You graduate, you keep reading, you keep learning, you keep sharpening your brain. But in Japan, the moment you stumble out of high school or university, it's game over. The book closes, the pen goes into retirement, and the dictionary collects dust for eternity. Let's be clear, I'm not just talking about English. No, the tragedy is bigger. 99% of Japanese people never open a dictionary again in their lives. Not for English, not even for Japanese. They stop learning words altogether. This is why adults in Japan sound like they're stuck in middle school forever, recycling the same tiny pool of phrases, endlessly looping yoroshiku onegaishimasu like a broken record. It's almost poetic. 12 years of English education and they can't order a coffee abroad. 12 years of Japanese education and half of them can't even write kanji without furigana. Try giving a middle-aged Japanese office worker a blank form and watch the panic set in. Their kanji skills collapse faster than their stock market. Meanwhile, in other countries, people look up new words daily. Americans expand their vocabulary through books and podcasts. Koreans hammer vocabulary apps on their commute. Singaporeans juggle English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil before breakfast. But the Japanese, they master one phrase, muzukashi, difficult. And that becomes their excuse for life. Here's the sad punchline. Japanese society actually congratulates itself on this intellectual laziness. We studied hard in school, they say, as if that's a lifetime license to stop trying. No curiosity, no ambition, no willingness to open a dictionary, even when they trip over a word in their own language. So let's call it what it is. Japan is a country of eternal academic retirees, a nation that worships the classroom years but abandons the very idea of lifelong learning. And that's why their English never improves, their vocabulary stays frozen, and their communication skills remain locked in the past. Because when 99% of a nation never touches a dictionary after graduation, you don't get progress. You get cultural brain rot. Here's where the comedy becomes tragedy. More than 90% of Japanese people believe English is only spoken in the US and the UK. That's it. Two countries. End of story. For them, English isn't an international language. It's a foreign hobby used by cowboys and Harry Potter. And this is where their favourite excuse is born. We don't need English because Americans and Brits can't speak Japanese. Bravo. Standing ovation. The intellectual depth of a puddle. Imagine a French person saying, "Why learn English? Americans don't speak French." Or a Brazilian saying, "Why learn English? Londoners don't speak Portuguese." The Japanese actually think this is logical. This isn't just narrow-mindedness, it's national-scale delusion. Here's the punchline. They never even realize that English is the world's common currency. It's not about impressing an American tourist in Shibuya or ordering tea in London. It's about communicating with India, Nigeria, Singapore, the Philippines, South Africa, Malaysia, and the rest of the planet. You know, the other 6 billion people who aren't American or British. But the Japanese, they don't even know these people exist in the linguistic universe. Their worldview is a map with only 3 countries, Japan, the US, and the UK. Everyone else, blurred out, irrelevant. So the cycle continues. Japanese people fail to learn English. They invent excuses. Their excuses are based on false assumptions, and their false assumptions come from never looking beyond their own island. This is why, after decades of studying English, there's still the global punchline. They don't lack brains, they lack perspective. Because here's the truth. English is not owned by America and Britain. English belongs to the world. It's the bridge language of business, science, diplomacy, and travel. But Japan is too busy protecting its fragile ego to admit this. Instead, they cling to the myth we don't need English, which is just a fancy way of saying we don't want to grow up. And so, Japan remains the world's most advanced economy where the people sound like eternal beginners. A nation that mistakes isolation for pride, excuses for logic, and ignorance for identity. Congratulations, Japan. You've turned narrow mindedness into an art form. So let's recap this comedy of errors. 12 years of English education and the result a toddler's vocabulary, a country where dictionaries retire earlier than salarymen, a nation that proudly declares, we don't need English because Americans don't speak Japanese, as if that argument doesn't sound like it was written on a kindergarten chalkboard. The truth is simple Japan isn't bad at English because it's difficult. They're bad at English because they refuse to master anything that requires daily effort, practice, and humility. And instead of admitting this, they build a Mount Fuji of excuses. We're shy, our brains are different, we don't need it. Excuses so old and recycled they should be listed as UNESCO cultural heritage. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is out there trading, building, connecting, and thriving in English. From Singapore to South Africa, from the Philippines to Poland, billions of people use English as their bridge to the future. And Japan? Still stuck at this is a pen. Still mistaking America and Britain for the entire planet. Still clapping for broken English comments as if they're Nobel-worthy poetry. Here's the punchline. Japan isn't just behind, they're proudly behind. They've turned narrow-mindedness into policy, excuses into tradition, and ignorance into identity. And that's why even in 2025, Japan remains the world's most expensive kindergarten, where everyone is stuck in beginner class forever. So the next time someone asks, why can't the Japanese speak English? You'll know the answer. It's not about ability. It's not about difficulty. It's about attitude. And until Japan trades excuses for effort, the land of the rising sun will stay the land of the eternal beginner. Mic drop.